Is WoW worth playing in 2024? The answer is yes. I'll close out this video. We don't even got to watch it. I know it.
Can always use another death knight.
Thank you for the 2 gifted subs, Jola. Thank you so much, man. Oh, you said you just got yourself that pet. Nice. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you.
Can always use another
Obviously,
death
Jola
knight.
thinks it's worth playing. Do the rest of you think so? I convinced a lot of people to come back to the game when the War Within went live. I told them, guys, I think this is it. I think WoW is back, and I think you should come back. All of those people that listened to me, guess what? They're loving the game right now. They've refound their love for World of Warcraft. They're enjoying it. They keep telling me about how good they think this expansion is and how much fun they're having. And you, yes, you, guy on YouTube is watching this video wondering if he should resubscribe. You can start having fun too. Let's see why it's worth playing in 2024.
Should you play WoW? Depending on who you ask, WoW is the best MMO in the world or the worst. Some people have played it
Who
for
the fuck would say it's the worst? Are you serious? There's some really shitty Korean pay-to-win MMOs out there. You say the worst? Man, that's just a hater.
over a decade and love it like it's their soulmate. While others, well, they will react like you just mentioned their cheating ex-girlfriend if you dare to speak its name.
Yeah,
what did WoW do to hurt them? And where do I stand? Let's talk about what WoW does right and what it doesn't with its latest expansion, The War Within. Let's start with solo content because we know we're going to be spending a lot of time doing it. The last time I reviewed WoW, I broke the solo content into 3 sections because I felt like it was strong from levels 1 to 10, and then horribly weak when it sent you to Chromie from levels 10 to 60. But then it was strong again when it sent you to Dragonflight for levels 60 to 70. As I mentioned in that video, 10 to 60 made no sense for the new player, or even for the returning players that had forgotten the story. It shoved you into the middle of Battle for Azeroth's expansion, and none of the dialogue made sense.
Yeah, that's
it talks
fixed
about
now.
places you'd never been as though you'd been there. It talked about people you had never met as though you saved them. It was a mess because they had you skip the base game and all of the story leading up to it, and then shoved you into the BFA expansion instead. Fortunately, Blizzard seems to have taken this feedback to heart. It no longer sends you to Chromie to jankily experience the story out of order. Instead, after you finish the tutorial at around level 10, it whisks you away to the Dragonflight expansion.
Yeah,
which
Dragonflight is essentially, I called it the, the foundation building expansion for the World Soul Saga, and that's truly what it is. Now it is the intro to the game for any new players or anyone who creates a player, and that makes sense, right? It's basically the kickoff into the World Soul Saga. So at least for the next 3 expansions, Dragonflight as the starting expansion is going to make a lot of sense, because these are all part of the World Soul Saga, and the truth is, the first inklings of the World Soul Saga, even though you can go all the way back to like Legion and stuff if you really want to see, obviously the sword and everything, but at least Dragonflight is the first kind of threads that'll take you into this expansion. So story-wise and intro quest-wise, I think Blizzard's done a great job in kind of fixing that jankiness that was earlier on.
is some of the best solo content in the entire game. The zones are massive and
It
gorgeous,
is the intro.
and best of all, it allows you
How
to
is it
unlock
the intro? What do you mean? You get all the Xal'atath backstory. You get all of the, you get to know who Iridikron is. You start to know about all these the Void Whispers and things that are coming our way. It's very much like an intro, and it introduces you to a bunch of the new specs, how everything works, the new crafting systems, the new flight systems. No, it's an intro. It is. That's why the story was so not good in Dragonflight. It was because there really wasn't much story to it. It was just all leading into the War Within.
dragon riding right away so that you can use skywriting throughout the entire game.
Yeah, you level through the
Skywriting
zones,
is the
but
new
you do the
flying
campaign,
system
so
that
you
WoW
learn the
has
story
very
a little bit.
successfully borrowed from Guild Wars 2. It's a physics-based flying system that's just plain fun. The solo experience is now a lot easier to follow, but it has definitely lost all of its classic MMO charm in the process. Still, it's definitely something far more players are likely to finish as a result. But I will always miss spawning into my race's starting zone at level 1, and in a perfect world, they would have made a new starting zone for each race instead of one for all.
That would be good.
But failing that, this is probably the next best thing. As a result of ushering players to Dragonflight, I think new player retention is about to skyrocket, and we'll see a lot more new players make it to the War Within than has been the case in recent expansions.
Yeah, not just new player retention, old player retention. I mentioned early on about how these guys who came back, all of them are still active right now. Not a single one has deactivated their sub. Now, yes, we're still early, but I will tell you, they message me on Discord all the time. Some of these guys, I'm related to them. Some of them are just friends. They're all telling me how much they're enjoying the game. I was like, what does the Waking Shore do with the World Soul Saga? Yeah, I know. No, I understand. But yeah, that Dragonflight questline, that story, Going through that story does very much kind of start to curtail itself into the War Within. Yeah,
What did it
okay.
cost WoW to achieve this? Quite literally everything. All of the content that existed before 2022, you now skip all of it. I mean,
Yeah.
all of the content is still there, off to the side, as optional, but I doubt a significant portion of the player base will use Chromie to down level and properly experience it, which is kind of sad to think about. New players are probably never going to visit 90% of the zones in the game now, but was this necessary to combat the bloat that comes with
Hell
adding
yeah, it was
content to a
necessary.
game for over 20 years? What do you think? One
Yeah.
thing is for sure, it's easier and smoother than ever to go from starting the game at level 1 to joining everyone in the new.
Also, we're going to go back to a lot of the old content. We're going to go back to Northrend and supposedly the last Titan expansion. We're going back to Quel'Thalas and all of the basically upper northern parts of the Eastern Kingdoms. We're revisiting all of that in the next expansion. What's it called? Midnight. So we're going to go back to some of these old zones, obviously, but this needed to happen. You can't have a 20-year-old game, 20 years worth of content, and expect a new player to be able to get through it all. It's crazy. They'll be lost and they'll just stop playing the game before they get to the end.
Newest expansion at level 70. And speaking of the newest expansion, War Within has added a new type of soloable content called Delves. Anyone who's ever wished
So
they could
good.
get really good gear, like heroic
good.
raid gear from solo content, well, your wish has just been granted. You can push Delves solo in the way that you can push Mythic Plus in a group. You can level up and deck out your companion who will join you in these Delves. Set him up to
I said this in Discord yesterday. People were talking about Delves. I said I think Blizzard has only just scratched the surface of the true potential of Delves. Yes, there were balancing issues and all kinds of scaling issues early on because this is really the first time Blizzard's kind of tried to do solo / groupable content in one place at the same time. And yeah, there were mistakes made. But I think they're getting it straight. They're getting it figured out. And I think Delves are going to turn out to be a great addition to the game. I've been enjoying them personally.
to heal or to help you do damage.
boy.
I think solo players looking for a solo path to good gear or simply looking for a challenge are going to love the new content. This is another example of Blizzard hearing people's requests and fulfilling them, so credit given where credit is due. Another great WoW solo activity is soloing the old raids for cool cosmetics that used to be insanely difficult to earn back when those raids were still very difficult to complete. Years of power creep has made it so that these old raids are now soloable, allowing casual players to reap the cosmetic rewards of completing what used to be the hardest content in the game. And the Warband system has improved this, and it's a huge addition to the game, so let's talk about that
It's
as well.
huge.
A couple of my
Warbands are
favorite
huge.
changes to the game are centered around the game's new Warband system. Sadly, one of my least favorite decisions
Hold
Blizzard-
on. Quick lesson for anybody new to World of Warcraft. Anybody that looks like this in the game is actually a guy in real life. Listen to the person who's talking right now. This is probably his character select screen. I just want you, don't fall into this trap. Don't be throwing free gold to somebody thinking you're going to get a new girlfriend or something. This is always a guy. Always. 99.9%. You're not going to be the 0.01% that finds the hot girl with the hot transmog. Okay, I'm just letting you know. Yeah, I'm just letting you know.
My least
Be
favorite
careful out
decisions
there.
Blizzard made is also due to the Warband system. Let me explain. It has basically made the game incredibly alt-friendly. You can now find gear on one character, and some of that gear you can hand off to an alt. And achievements are now account-wide, so you can 100% zones
Sometimes
on
it's
different
good, too.
characters to keep it fresh. ESO did this a couple of years ago, and it was a huge success. Now you might be thinking, why would you have a problem with any of that? Well, they made it easier to collect transmogs from the old raids for your alts as well, which sounds amazing until you realize that Blizzard has excluded class sets from the Warband Mog system changes, which means you still have to run every raid on every class every week if you want to farm the cosmetics from them. You can still pick them up in the old raid, but they won't unlock the transmog because you have to find the Hunter class set while playing a Hunter. And just like that, I went from, oh man, I'm definitely going to jump in and farm out the old raid mogs to, oh, I'm definitely not going to jump on and farm out the old raid mogs. I really
Yeah.
hope Blizzard rethinks this one.
I wonder if they'll go back and change this. They might. The thing is, you can't have it like that for the new raids, obviously. Well, the thing is, I got tier set, though. I got tier set for an alt before I got tier set for my main through the new raid. It was a personal loot. It's like a personal loot item that you can get for your alts. It was, that's cool. But going back and doing the old transmogs, I didn't even realize that was a thing. So the tier sets, you cannot get them for your alts by doing an alt run. Okay.
even if it only works in the old expansions. But outside of
You
the
have to run
decision
it
to
with
not let
the-
your demon
with the
hunter
actual
find and
character.
unlock the tier sets for your other classes in the old raids, the Warband system is full of wins. You now have a War Bank tab that is an account-wide tab at your bank that all of your alts can toss items into or pull items from. Gone are the days of having to mail items to your other characters, and as someone who plays a different class with every expansion, I love all of this. They also implemented a thing where each max level character you have increases the speed at which you level your alts. So alts become
That's right.
progressively quicker to level up, and I think this was a pretty cool change. Beyond that,
Up to 25%. You get a 5% buff for every alt you have that you're leveling again, up to 25%. So that's pretty big.
seeing your characters huddled around a campfire, that's just a nice touch. Next, let's talk about WoW's combat. But first, if you love this game, you're gonna love Guild Wars 2,
Oh,
which is one of the
Jesus.
most popular MMOs out right now. It's a beautiful, free-to-start
Never played
MMORPG
it.
that respects the player's time with account-wide unlocks. Guild Wars 2 has kindly sponsored this video so that I can tell you about its newest expansion, Janther Wilds, releasing on August 20th. For the first time in Guild Wars 2's history, a
Guild
new
Wars
weapon
2
type
good?
will be introduced for land combat, the two-handed spear. Initially designed for underwater combat, Guild Wars 2's Janther Wilds will allow players to swap freely between aquatic and terrestrial
Oh, geez,
weapon
goodness.
slots, each with unique weapon skills. On top of that, this expansion brings the long-requested housing system called homesteads. Your homestead will be an account-wide personal instance with a structure and land for you to decorate and
Hey, they
cultivate.
beat WoW
And
in
no,
that.
you don't need to worry about silly lotteries, land grabs, rents, or maintenance. And the mount system in Guild Wars 2 is getting even better, with a new method of acquisition
that's a
for the
cool mount.
War Claw and its own mastery line. Now, the War Claw will be automatically unlocked for all players who own Guild Wars 2 Heart of Thorns or Path of Fire. Guild Wars 2 features tons
That's a
of
long
amazing
ad,
solo
holy shit.
content in a massive open world for you to explore. And this expansion alone is adding 3 new zones, with more content being added
Jesus.
quarterly throughout the year. Of course, this great MMO has new group content as well, such as convergences, which are 50
Wow, this totally became a Guild Wars 2 video. Holy shit. This is a long ad, man.
player events and a new raid. It also
to
has a new
pause during the
fractal
ad.
dungeon with a challenge mode for
Oh my
10
God,
player
it's still
groups
going.
and a Wizard's Vault rewards. Guild Wars 2 is a must-try for anyone who enjoys MMOs. Its unique take on the genre makes it an absolute gem to add to your MMO rotation. What are you waiting for? Click the link in the description to try Guild Wars 2 for free, or if you're already in, buy the new expansion. Janther Wilds awaits. Thanks for listening. Now let's get back to the video. Combat can
Hey, you
make-
gotta respect the hustle from Guild Wars 2. Sponsoring WoW content. Yeah, hey, fuck it. It's good for them.
or break MMOs for a lot of people. WoW is a tab target MMO.
Hey, I don't blame the
Or
guy for
is
taking it.
Well, that's
He
up
got
to
paid.
you now. For 99% of the game, you're perfectly fine to turn on action combat mode in the settings and play WoW as if it were an action combat MMO. Look at your target and fire your abilities. Gone are the days of needing to tab target or manually click on something before you can hit it. But that's not to say that you're never going to need to click on enemies, because sometimes you need to make sure you're kicking the right one. Now, I wasn't even someone who had a problem with tab target, likely because I've been playing World of Warcraft on and off since its beta in 2004, but since then I have played a lot of action combat MMOs like Black Desert Online, Guild Wars 2, and Elder Scrolls Online. And so as soon as they added this action combat mode to WoW, I was curious how it would stack up. And honestly, it worked. It felt smooth.
I mean, we saw a full-fledged action combat version of WoW. It was Plunderstorm, and it was actually a lot of fun. Now, I don't think the game itself will ever become like that, but I think we're going to see more aimable abilities, you know, like the Drakthir introduced, like the Evokers, introduced into the game. So we're getting more and more of that. I'm sure eventually every class will have some sort of like aimable, actionable ability.
Smooth. I was able to effortlessly fire off abilities at
mind that.
whoever
They're
I was
pretty fun.
looking at, but I think action combat is a lot more effective for the tanks and the DPS than it is for the healers, so your mileage may vary with this setting. To me, WoW's combat is one of the best as far as tab target MMOs go.
100%.
You have a wide variety of classes. Each class then has multiple different specs that you can choose between.
There is no other MMO out there right now, or in existence in the past, that feels as good as WoW does when it comes to hitting something. Like just taking your weapon out and hitting it. The contact, the way it feels, the fluidity of movement in WoW is better than any other MMO by far, bar none, no arguments. It truly is. And that's one of the reasons I think why most people prefer to play WoW.
And
janky
now with
combat
War
is
Within, they're
immersion
even
breaking.
adding a further subdivision beyond that. Do you want to be a frost mage or a fire mage? Do you want to be a hunter that focuses on having your pet do damage? Or do you want to go marksman and focus on making yourself do more damage? Do you want to play as a druid and then spec into a tank or a healer or a DPS? WoW gives you a lot of choices and a lot of opportunities to find the perfect class and playstyle for you. One potential problem for you might be that this game is known for having a lot of buttons, and it still has a lot of buttons, so if it bothered you before, it will probably still bother you now. But I will say that if you were to force yourself to play this game with 5 or 8 buttons, you'd be able to reach 90% effectiveness on most classes, which would allow you to do everything that you wanted to. Many of these extra abilities are utility-based or for niche situations, and you can live without them, especially if you're not planning to push sweaty content. Speaking about sweaty content, let's talk about group content. Group content is probably what WoW is most known for. When a lot of people think of WoW, they think of the old 40-man raids, the Mythic Plus dungeons.
Man, I wish they'd bring back 40-man raids. I really do miss 40-man raids. I want 60-man raids. I don't give a shit. I just enjoy the feeling of getting together with a bunch of people and killing a giant boss. To me, there's nothing more epic than that. Like the old Anixia's Lair style stuff where, like 40 of the greatest champions of Azeroth coming together to kill a giant dragon in a cave. Like for me, that's peak lore. That's what I want. I do miss 40-man raids a lot. I wish they'd bring them back.
Endgame that everyone always seems so hellbent on sprinting to. And maybe that's for a reason. WoW's dungeons and raids are some of the best that any MMO has to offer. They're absolutely a time sink though. You aren't going to be signing in for a half hour to try out the new raid. Not when it first launches. Instead, get ready to set aside at least a couple of hours. But it's a fun couple of hours, especially if you're in a Discord with a gang of friends that you enjoy playing the game with.
Or you're
There's nothing
here
else like it. And you're
on
well
Twitch.
rewarded for your time in WoW. You've got great mounts that you can earn and fantastic transmog that you can deck out your character with. Beyond the raid content, you've got Mythic Plus dungeons, which are just dungeons that scale up to 10 different difficulty levels. It used to be more, but War Within compressed the process down to 10 tiers. I'm a big fan of this change. I always burned out way before I got to the highest tiers of Mythic Plus. Climbing through 20 different versions of the same exact dungeon was a bit redundant for my taste. All in all, I enjoy the Mythic Plus dungeon system. It successfully turned dungeons into a replayable endgame activity with fantastic rewards. This is something almost every other MMO really struggles to achieve with their dungeons. Final Fantasy downlevels you so that you can replay old dungeons while keeping them relevant, but the gear and rewards you receive in them is still low-level, useless gear, so it's not a perfect solution. ESO has multiple tiers of difficulty for its dungeons, but Veteran Hard Mode Fungal Grotto is not exactly going to challenge a veteran player, so it too becomes an imperfect solution. MMOs are repetitive, which can be okay, as long as there's a reward tucked in there that makes the grind worthwhile. For Mythic...
That's it. That's the only thing MMO players truly care about is attach a reward to something. Make it cosmetic, make it a mount, make it a pet, or make it eye level increases in armor. You do that, people will do the content.
Plus dungeons, you earn gear upgrades, mounts, and cosmetics, which is
Or even a
everything you
title.
could ask for from a
fat
dungeon.
loot.
Now let's talk about PvP. The best part about WoW PvP is that it's not pay to win, which already makes it better than 90% of PvP MMOs out there. I just can't be bothered to fight against people who are swiping their way to the best gear. Anyone that's willing to fight against pay to win whales in a pay to win MMO, I've got bad news. You're an NPC in someone else's game.
Hey, come on now. There's
true.
no need to get violent.
Damn.
It is worth noting the WoW token is a thing and it sucks. It allows you to effectively buy gold with your credit card, which you can then use to buy mediocre gear. But the best gear is earned and not purchased, so the effect of the WoW token on PvP isn't something that will negatively affect you.
Also, in general, the effect of gear in PvP has been lessened quite a lot over the years, which I personally feel like has not been a good thing. I always feel like if you did the work, you put in the time, you got the gear, you should be able to dick slap the shit out of everybody. You should be able to helicopter dick your way around and not worry about anybody being able to really kill you because you are a god amongst men. Personally, I like that fantasy, but I understand that, okay, this is the way to kind of even the playing field for people who just want a PvP and don't want to be forced to do other content. All right, that's fine. But yeah, really, in terms of PvP, gear can only do so much now, the way that things even out with the way the systems are. And really, it comes down to skill and reaction time and all that stuff and understanding other classes when it comes to who's going to win a PvP
Other
fight.
forms of PvP include the Battlegrounds, which you can do ranked or unranked, and while PvP balance is equal to or better than most other MMOs PvP balance, which isn't to say it's perfect, but it's good enough to enjoy it if you're into PvP. What WoW PvP does well is reward you for putting time into it. You can earn mounts, armor, and cosmetics all by PvPing, which is more than most MMOs can say that they offer with a straight face. Ashes of Creation style of PvP still excites me more than what WoW has to offer, But Ashes of Creation is a game that's charging people $120 to play the alpha and may never actually release. Is Ashes of Creation going to become the next Star Citizen? Well, that's probably a tangent for another video. My only real gripe with WoW PvP is, and has always been, how long crowd control abilities last. You can straight up just lose control of your character for eternities at a time, and usually if you die in PvP, that's why. Next up, we've got population health. If we were to judge MMOs solely based on their population size, well, by that metric, WoW would be the best MMO in the world. More often than not, it boasts the largest population of...
So much for a dead game, right? Yeah, fuck the haters. People still playing this game nonstop. What are we gonna do?
Any MMO. The only one that comes close these days is Final Fantasy XIV, with old school RuneScape getting an honorable mention as well. Suffice it to say, the one thing you don't have to worry about is WoW's population health. It has loads of people playing the game at all times, which means you'll always be able to find a party or a guild to play with if you're keen on it. WoW gets a lot of flack for having an aging and grumpy old population. I think this is half true. There are a lot of guys that have been playing this game for over a decade, and now...
Who's he talking about? Who's he talking about? I don't know who he's talking about. I started playing this game when I was 14. Now I'm 34. Let that settle in. Got a lot less hair than I used to.
Have zero patience for anyone that's still learning the game. It's ironic because those new players are absolutely essential to keeping their beloved MMO alive, and without that injection of fresh blood, WoW would quickly bleed out. So hey, if you're someone that loves WoW and you find yourself chewing out the new guy that's still learning the dungeon, or you're leaving after the first wipe, perhaps consider approaching these things a little bit differently for the sake of your MMO's future. Now, WoW isn't the only game with grumpy veterans. I've played into the endgame of a lot of MMOs, and to be honest, they all have their share of toxic players who stopped having fun a long time ago, but still play the game like it's a job because they don't know how to move on. The fact is, the longer someone plays an MMO, the more likely they are to turn into that miserable old player, and WoW's been around for 20 years, so it's collected its share of them. But by way of its massive population size, it's also got as many or more nice players as any other MMO out there.
True.
You just gotta find them. Next, let's talk about the age of the game. Is it holding it back? I'd say that Blizzard has done a great job of overhauling the WoW engine time and time again to make sure it was one of the most powerful engines in the genre.
Thank you, Cosmetic. Thank you for the Prime sub. I appreciate that. And yes, by the way, if you look, I mean, classic WoW's out there. You can go back and look at it now. But if you look at like vanilla WoW and current WoW, they almost look like two different games. I mean, Blizzard's done a great job of overhauling the game, updating graphics. Yes, there are things like Ungoro Crater that when you fly over it, you're like, holy shit, what is this out of like 2005? Where'd this thing come from? But they're gradually even upgrading those zones. So yes, it's an old game, but damn, I mean, you look at a zone like Hallowfall, that shit looks like something that came out in 2024. It's gorgeous. So yeah, they've done a great job keeping up this stuff. Thank you. Love the channel. Thank you so much for the sub, man. Happy to have you here. Thank you.
If not the most powerful engine in the genre. You can fly anywhere across multiple zones without a single load screen. You can run alongside massive groups of players in massive events without any lag. Visually, its art style is doing a good job of hanging in there, and the engine overalls and the lighting updates have kept it looking good. But most importantly, like I touched on at the beginning of this video, WoW might as well be only 1 or 2 years old as far as the new player is concerned. New players won't really experience any content that existed before Dragonflight, not until they've gone through Exile's Reach, then the Dragonflight expansion, and now the War Within expansion. And then after they finish all of that, they might go back and clear some of the old content for cosmetics and mounts, but only if they feel like it. Yeah. So yeah, to the new player, this game might as well only be a couple of years old, and it's kind of weird to think about. I often daydream about a World of Warcraft 2, a sequel to WoW that takes the best of what World of Warcraft has created and leaves the rest and the bloat and the WoW token behind. It's an exciting prospect for some veteran players. It's a terrifying prospect to other veteran players. I'm of the mindset that the 500th mount just isn't as exciting as the first. I really look forward to collecting my first mount in WoW 2 someday. WoW has changed over the years. WoW now focuses on making itself into an endgame lobby for dungeons and raids, rather than being a journey through a mysterious, unexplored world. Don't get me wrong, the raids and the dungeons are a ton of fun, but I do miss the journey.
Yeah, we all miss the journey, of course, but will a WoW 2 ever happen? I don't know, man. I like, will it happen if WoW is about to die? Yes, 100%. Microsoft played quite a lot to acquire Blizzard Activision, and no, it was not just to get all the Call of Duty Jimmies who play on their Xbox, okay? World of Warcraft was certainly part of that process and that portfolio when they were deciding how much they were going to pay for Blizzard Activision. For Activision Blizzard, I should say. You got to word it correctly. Would they let WoW die before trying a WoW 2? No. but I don't think WoW is even close to something like that happening. Already, Chris Metzen's talked about patch 17. Like they're already talking about 17. We're on 11 right now, so they're talking about 17. They have a lot of content laid out for this game, and we're already basically playing a version of WoW too, honestly, with the updated graphics and everything else. And he talked about some of the zones getting reworked. It's already been confirmed. Basically, the upper half of the Eastern Kingdoms is getting completely revamped. Silver Moon and all that's getting rebuilt. So there's a ton of stuff coming into the game that's going to make it feel like a WoW 2. But to ever officially get that, I think things would have to look pretty bleak for it to happen.
Numbers, WoW is still the king of the MMO genre, and I don't see WoW 2 showing up until someone manages to dethrone it for a significant amount of time. Blizzard doesn't have a lot of incentive to compete with itself at the moment, and with Riot hitting the reset button on their MMO, it could be a long time until someone challenges WoW more than Final Fantasy XIV is able to. Except there is that one MMO out there that Zoss has been silently making for at least 7 years now. That should be announced any day now. Let's talk about monetization. WoW is a buy-to-play MMO with a mandatory sub. If it weren't for the WoW token, I would say that monetization was as close to perfect as we'll realistically get in an MMO in 2024 and beyond. I'm personally a subscription enjoyer. I would rather pay for a sub while I'm playing an MMO than have to pay for all the things that I enjoy earning.
100%. Yeah, I agree with that. I'd rather... part of the reason why I'm scared for them to ever get rid of the sub is because I'm worried about the other versions of monetization that they would go for to kind of make up for that or something. I hope that never happens. If they want to make it part of Game Pass, I guess that's fine because you got to sub to that. If they ever did make it part of Game Pass, it'd probably be like, oh, hey, WoW is now part of Game Pass and now Game Pass costs X amount of dollars. I'd be fine with that because I pay for both anyways right now. So if they wanted to raise Game Pass to, I don't know, $18 a month or something, whatever, give it to me. I already pay for both, so that would actually be a decrease in my monthly expenditures. But I hope they always kind of keep it in a sub. I do, because I feel like that kind of limits the amount of other shitty versions of monetization that could enter the game.
Like gear or cosmetics. $15 a month to enjoy the hell out of every day is
yeah,
worth it for
Gunka,
me.
that's what
But
I would
everyone's
imagine.
financial situation is different, so I totally get it if that's out of your budget. If it is out of your budget, then you're one of the few people the WoW token might benefit. You could theoretically grind enough gold in the game to buy your WoW token and therefore your sub with in-game gold, thereby playing World of Warcraft without having to pay cash for the monthly sub. Now, one make or break feature for me in MMOs is my drip, my transmogs, my cosmetics. Can I make my character look awesome by earning cosmetics, or do I have to go to the cash shop to get the best cosmetics? WoW excels here, and this is where that 20 years of content really comes in handy. 20 years of content means 20 years of mounts, 20 years.
And one really good thing about WoW players in general, I don't know how other MMOs are, but WoW players are very, very good at knowing where gear comes from, where certain cosmetics are from, what was purchased on the store, and what was earned in-game. And that's important because when you look like a badass and everybody knows, oh, he got those shoulders from that raid and he got that helm from that achievement, and he got this and that just makes it that much better. Whereas when you're in the full like one suit Andy from the you know, the game shop, from the WoW shop, everybody knows like, oh yeah, he just bought that. So it's not as cool, right? So there's always that feeling of like the in-game shit will always be better than anything they put on the store, even if the store stuff looks cool, because that in-game shit just has that extra meaning to it.
Years of cool armor transmogs.
WoW players don't know WoW.
There's so much to collect. I can almost guarantee you'll never collect all of it. And best of all, a lot of it looks legitimately awesome. In MMOs, when I hit max level, my main concern is getting my character and my mount to look awesome. WoW does better than just about any other MMO in this regard. Probably the only one that even comes close is Final Fantasy XIV. From the monetization standpoint, WoW passes my need test. There's never been a point at which I felt like I needed something from the cash shop. I've never needed to buy cosmetics because there's better stuff that I can earn in game. I've never needed to buy mounts because better mounts can be earned in game. A lot of MMOs are ruined for me because of the need test, but WoW crushes it. Now, let's talk about the future of WoW, because
I'll be honest, the only time that I felt like I needed to buy a WoW token was during the Torghast days. Because damn it, recrafting my legendary like 36 times, yeah, it got to me. And I needed to freaking buy a WoW token. Kind of sad, but those days are gone. I don't feel a need to buy one now.
All of this is great, but if the future of the MMO looks bleak, no one's going to want to devote a bunch of time into a dying MMO. Fortunately for WoW, it's as alive as it gets. It has more players than other MMOs, which means it makes more money than other MMOs, which means its expansions are bigger than other MMOs' expansions. The future of WoW is anything but uncertain, as at the moment, WoW has already announced its next 2 expansions that are going to be coming out after the War Within as part of their World Soul saga. So that means we've got expansion content planned and announced for at minimum until 2028. I can't think of another MMO that has announced a roadmap that far out. So let's go over the pros and the cons of WoW as it exists today. And I think it's going to be interesting to look at my old list of pros and cons from my last WoW review that came out with the Dragonflight expansion a couple of years ago, and see if Blizzard has addressed any of these. So at the launch of Dragonflight, I said the solo content was great, but that level 10 through 60 was awful for new players. Today, the solo experience has only gotten better, and Blizzard largely fixed the 10 to 60 experience by sending you straight to Dragonflight and using cutscenes and conversations with NPCs to connect all the necessary dots to make this feel like an infinitely more coherent path to max level than Chromie ever was. So I would say that this first con has been solved. I also said that group content was amazing, but that I really lamented how alt unfriendly WoW was. Pushing Mythic Plus keys on one character made me never want to create an alt because the thought of starting over with basic gear was just not appetizing. Now you can find Warband gear or gear that drops 1 tier below your current content, and this gear can be put into your warbank so that you can hand it off to an alt. Achievements are also account wide, so the game is incredibly alt friendly now, so we can mark this one off as solved as well. Gear being character bound instead of account bound has been partially solved, with warbound gear being a thing where you can find gear and pass it between your warband. And just like that, Blizzard has kindly addressed every one of my cons from the last video. So I've kindly thought of a couple of new ones. My primary gripe right now is I'm going to say that collecting class set transmogs from old raids needs to be set free.
Yeah, they should fix that.
I want to collect my mage transmog while running through old raids on my demon hunter. I am not going to run through every raid every week on every class. I would rather pour salt into my eyes. I have a feeling that no one at Blizzard wants to log in and run every raid every week on every class to collect their transmogs either. So let's make it happen, Blizzard. Let demon hunters find and unlock mage class set transmogs and vice versa, at least for the old content. Maybe one that's a little bit more important would be the addition of a die system. A lot of smaller, less profitable MMOs have added die systems to their game, and players absolutely love.
Yeah, die systems are fine, but the one thing about WoW gear is that the colorway indicates the difficulty that the armor was earned on. So I don't know if they could ever do that. Maybe for like gray geared shit and not allow it for tier gear. But I personally kind of like the fact that I can look at a piece of gear and I know like, oh, this guy got Mythic. Like this guy did Mythic raid. He got this set from the Mythic raid. So that I'm not sure about.
Love it. I think it would be a huge hit in World of Warcraft. You'd be able to combine so many more sets that you found over the years if you could just dye some of the channels
you could have
make the
effects.
match better. And those are my latest major gripes with World of Warcraft. They're literally cosmetic. And I think that's a testament to the work that Blizzard's been putting into World of Warcraft to return it to form. They got rid of the borrowed power, so we can't complain about that. They got rid of the problem from 10 to 60. They got rid of the alt unfriendliness. They keep getting rid of the things that we're complaining about, and they even added a way for solo players to get endgame gear. And the rest of my pros are still pros. It's still got talent trees, and it's even adding another layer to that system with War Within. It still has a huge population, active PvP, fair monetization, and a bright future. So to answer the question at the beginning of the video, is WoW's War Within worth playing? Well, hopefully I've provided enough information for you to decide for yourself, but in my opinion, yeah, absolutely. It's the biggest, most successful MMO ever, and it's still evolving at an impressive pace. But what do you think? Would you recommend WoW to someone, or would you recommend a different game? And why? What would you have added to the pros side of this list, or the cons? Let me know in the comments below. I'm really curious to see your guys' answers, and I will absolutely read them. If you're coming back to WoW after a long break, or if you're completely new to the game, check out my complete beginner guide for World of Warcraft, popping up on the description of this video. Massive shout out to my channel members. For $5 a month, you too can become a channel member for perks like behind the scenes footage, access to our private Discord channel, and my undying gratitude. If you're not sure what to do next, check out one of these videos popping up on screen right now.
Yeah, overall, at the end he said, is WoW a good MMO or whatever? Honestly, WoW is the MMO. If we're being completely honest with ourselves, anybody who knows anything about MMOs, heard of MMOs, maybe never played an MMO, they've all heard of World of Warcraft, and there's a reason for it. It is the undisputed big dick king of the MMO genre, and looks like it'll continue to be for quite a while. The War Within, great expansion so far, and I think it's going to have some of the highest retention numbers we've seen in a very long time for this game.